You are Locked On Texans Postcast, part of Locked On Sports Houston on the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Well, I can tell you guys this right now as you're watching the show live. For some reason, my thing won't change to Rockets Postcast, so apparently this is the Texans Postcast tonight. It's not the Texans Postcast. This is the Locked On Rockets Postcast. Hi and welcome. Appreciate you guys for joining me tonight here on this show. I am your host, Michael Connor. I won't have anything up on the screen because, well, other than my face tonight, because, like I said, I'm having a little bit of a technical issue here with our website. It's telling me this is a Texans Postcast, and it's not. This is a Rockets Postcast. Appreciate you guys again stopping by. If you're new to our channel, don't forget to hit the subscribe button. Make sure you come back and join us. Was that the worst game of the season so far for the Houston Rockets? I mean, absolutely atrocious from them tonight. And it all started early on where they were absolutely terrible as the game got going. We got a lot to get into. Of course, they are a banged-up team. We'll take a look at what is ahead as well. And again, overall, was that the worst performance you have seen out of this team so far this season? Tonight's episode of the Locked On Rockets Postcast is brought to you by FanDuel. Super Bowl 59 is here, and there's no better way for you to make every play more exciting than with FanDuel Sportsbook. New customers can bet just $5, and if you win, you will score $200 in bonus bets. Download the app or head to FanDuel.com to get started today. To me, that was the worst game of the season to watch for the Houston Rockets tonight. Nothing fun about it. And really credit to Brooklyn for what they were able to go out and do tonight against this Rockets team. They went out there and I really felt like from the jump controlled this thing. And when I say that they controlled this thing, look at what they did defensively to the Rockets in the first half. And you want to, I'm not going to go complete, sky is falling. You're not going to do that after one game. The Rockets, lose a game tonight. It is what it is. They fall to 32-16 now in the season. Is it frustrating? Absolutely. But the season isn't over. We've seen a few teams do this season, and I personally don't understand why more teams don't. The Rockets can't handle a zone. And a lot of that comes from the fact that the Rockets will have these situations where, they can't hit an outside shot at all. They can't do anything. And teams don't respect them from the outside. So what do? They sit here and they go, you know what? We're just going to sit here and watch you try to shoot threes from the outside all night and hope that it works out for you. Or, you have to hope that it works out for you. We're going to guess that it won't. And that's exactly what ends up happening to the Rockets constantly. We've seen all the reports recently about trade deadline stuff. Trade deadline's getting ready to come up. What, next week? Or into this week? Thursday? I believe it is. Off the top of my head, what is it? Yeah, this week. I'm more on you let this thing ride. You see how now look. Teams aren't going to play as much zone when you have Alperen Şengün out there. Because if you get the ball inside to him, he's going to be able to bust up zones. And he can work around the hoop, whatever. And the Rockets are also going to be able to run a more effective pick and roll. Because, look, even if he's not been the best this season, Fred VanVleet matters to this team. Fred VanVleet's ability to run the pick and roll matters for this team. Because the Rockets are so incredibly bad without that out there that it becomes a massive problem when he's not. And you saw that tonight. This team struggled mightily without those two guys. And when they don't have them consistently, that's a problem. because they don't have anybody that, I know that I'm looking at a box score that tells me Jalen Green scored 29. It was a laborious 29 tonight. He was terrible from the outside. The Rockets as a team, as a team, they were terrible shooting the ball. They did a lot of things poorly. And really, I think they just kind of let a bad Brooklyn team come in here. And look, you're entitled to these kind of games in an 82-game season. I get that. You're going to have these. But to go out there and to have one of these on a night where you're playing again a Brooklyn team 16-33 entering this one. They just recently had a 7-game losing streak snap. They stink. And if any casual fan watched that game tonight for the first, I know the Rockets outscored Brooklyn in the fourth quarter, but that was hollow stuff at that point. But if any casual basketball fan watched this game tonight and didn't know much about either team, they would have gone, man, Brooklyn's probably pretty good. That Rockets team, they got some issues. Tonight, the Rockets did. Good news, you get to see them in a couple of nights in Brooklyn. Bad news is on a back-to-back. Bad news also is that you've put something on tape that other teams have seen that the Brooklyn now knows. And guess what they're probably going to do in a couple of nights in Brooklyn? They're going to have the same strategy. They're going to come out there and they're going to say, you know what? We are absolutely going to do the same thing over and over until you prove us otherwise. Hopefully, by that point, the Rockets have Alperen Sengun back. That would be kind of a big deal. That would mitigate some of the issues that they had tonight. Hopefully, they'll have Fred. I'm going to go ahead and guess with Fred. We all know he likes to get hurt a little bit. We love Fred, but he can get banged up. And Fred Fred probably is not going to be available on a back-to-back. We'll see if Alpy is. But that's for a couple of games. That's for the concerns in a few games from now. You just don't want to end up looking back at your schedule at the end of the year and going, because, again, we've done this exercise a few times on this show. You really go through the Rockets' schedule this season. They've, for the most part, taken care of their business against almost every team that you would expect them to take care of their business against. But if you were to have 2 losses against this Brooklyn team, given where they're going to finish, you're like, man, that really, really stinks. I don't want to tie all that back together. Even with those guys out tonight, the concerns for what this team can do offensively. Look, I get it. They're actual concerns. We'll discuss it and what it means for the week ahead for this Rockets team. It's a big week in the NBA with the deadline coming up. And we'll do that here in just a brief second on the Locked On Rockets Postcast. This is a message from our sponsor, Intuit TurboTax. Taxes was waiting and wondering and worrying if you were going to get any money back, and then waiting, wondering, and worrying some more. Now, Taxes is matching with a TurboTax expert who can do your taxes as soon as today. An expert who gives your taxes their undivided attention as they work on your return while you get real-time updates on their progress so you can focus on your day. An expert will find you every deduction possible and file every form, every investment, everything with 100% accuracy. All so you can get the most money back guaranteed. No waiting, no wondering, no worries. Now this is Taxes. Get an expert now on TurboTax.com. Only available with TurboTax Live Full Service. Real-time updates only in the iOS app. See guarantee details at TurboTax.com/guarantees. Locked On Rockets Postcast tonight after the Rockets, I'm saying it for me, without a doubt, suffering their worst loss of the season. 110-98 the final tonight as they fall to the Brooklyn Nets. Rockets now sitting at, I was going to say 16-32. 32-16. It would be rough if they were 16-32. Those are the old days of the Rockets. Those aren't today's days of the Houston Rockets. But 32-16 after this loss, They'll look to bounce back Monday night. They're going up to New York for a couple of games up there. They'll play the Knicks on Monday, the Nets on Tuesday. I believe I have that right. Yes, Monday, Tuesday in New York. Those are 6:30 tips. So we'll be with you a little bit earlier than we normally are, in recent times because of the earlier starts with the East Coast time there. But this show, by the way, if you're saying hello and welcome, if you did not start with us from the beginning, if you stay with us through the end, the screen is going to say Locked On Texans. This is not the Locked On Texans show. I'm having issues with our site here, and it's playing Texans everything. But this is the Locked On Rockets Postcast. We're live with you after all the games. We did not have one the other night after the game against the Memphis Grizzlies. This old man had to get up at 5 o'clock in the morning. It was a little late, 8:40 tip, so we weren't doing that one. But appreciate you guys stopping by. Make sure you hit the subscribe button. Make sure you come back for every show moving forward. And, of course, if you're looking for this show on podcast or in its podcast form, go and search for Locked On Rockets. You'll get this show and the Locked On Rockets Daily Show, which is hosted by Jackson Gatlin. He does a wonderful job. Go and check out his work. Check out his YouTube page as well. Appreciate you guys supporting all of these pages. Tonight, the Rockets get their butts kicked in a bad way. That was, I think, the most disappointing thing of tonight is that I felt like the basketball game, with it being so, they played poorly and they got behind. Now, look, they weren't like terribly behind early. Brooklyn's sitting there running this zone defense that they can't touch, that they can't crack at all. And they are still in the basketball game because Brooklyn's not great. We know that. But it just kind of felt like they let that energy, because the energy really got sucked out. I felt like, of the building a bit and of the team there in that first half. And I felt like they kind of played to that poor energy that they were kind of going out with. They just kind of stayed right there. They just hovered at that bad level of energy all night long. And that's frustrating, right? I mean, it's really frustrating to watch. It's not what I want to watch. It's not what you want to watch. It's not what anybody in the arena wants to watch. And you could kind of feel that energy throughout the basketball game tonight. It never felt like Toyota Center got up. Why would you? And they just let them kind of dictate how the game was going to go. Then they compounded it with mistakes. The turnovers early were a problem. They changed that a little bit in the second half. They did have an easier time in that third quarter getting the basket, some lineup adjustments, some other guys coming in, whatever. It kind of helped. But they weren't getting stops at that point either. I mean, you let this Brooklyn team get out to, it was like 21-point lead at one point. How? You played like cheeks. That's about the only way to put it. And again, I bring this up because of the importance of this week. Trade deadline coming up this week. Thursday is the NBA trade deadline. I need to check the time on that again. I don't expect the Rockets to be overly active. I think we've seen enough about it. If you've read the Thursday at 2 o'clock Central Time, if you've read the ESPN reports, kind of what's going on at the deadline, the Rockets have they want to see it through with this group. And I think that's completely fine. I've talked about that before. Here is where the playoff, though, will become an issue for the Rockets. One, they lack the experience. We all know that. Teams that lack experience, while it can benefit them because they don't understand the stage maybe necessarily, that they're on in that given moment, the bright lights don't affect them as much. It can also be the opposite, but it could also be something that, they get to that stage and everything the margins are so thin, and the amount of work that the other teams put in on each opponent heightens compared to, look, Brooklyn played a couple of nights ago, and yeah, they're doing advanced study and they've got scouting departments. They got guys that work on things and whatnot. But it's not like Brooklyn's been sitting here focusing on this game for an extended period of time, focusing on this team, and you're not playing them back-to-back games and whatnot. if I'm any NBA team and I look at this Rockets team and I watch them, even with Alpi out there and even with Fred VanVleet as well, I would play the zone all the time. I would. Is it in the minds of maybe some basketball purist or something out there? Is that kind of like cheapy to play this way now? Maybe, but I wouldn't care. If I was an opposing team, that's what I would do. I would absolutely play zone against the Rockets all the time. They've shown that they can't handle it. And they don't have the kind of shooting because the number one buster of the zone is shooting. They don't have that. We all know that. As much as I love them, as much as all of you love them, as much as I'm loving this run, we all know, if we are being honest with ourselves, we all know the limitations that this basketball team has offensively. Defensively, sky's the limit. You know, I spend a lot of time on this show. We don't focus on a bunch of the. I saw one of the comments the other day on one of the videos, like, why all you focus on is the offense. Well, I mean, like, I focus on the offense when we talk about this team because what's going to get them is going to be the offense. That is what is going to get them. They've got inconsistent scorers. They've got guys that just don't have jump shots, and that's the problem. Jalen had a red-hot start to the month of January. He's faded a little bit again. He gets 29 tonight. Fine, but it was a laborer's 29. He was awful from the outside. Absolutely awful. And if they get into a spot in the playoffs where a team's running the zone all the time and they can't score, why shouldn't I believe that this kind of stuff would happen in the playoffs? And that's what concerns me as a fan of this team. And it's a worthy concern. So I bring up Thursday because you look at Thursday and you say, are they going to do anything? There's not going to be the take your shot at this superstar type of trade out there. You know, if you've read the tea leaves on the De'Aaron Fox situation, I wasn't the biggest. Not that I don't like De'Aaron Fox. I don't think De'Aaron Fox is the right guy that you're going for this team in the spot that they're in. I think you hold on to your chips longer and you hope for better than that. But this team needs still, they don't need to change the way that they play. They don't need to change their mentality. They don't need to change a lot of things. But they need a legit scoring threat, consistent scoring threat. They have scoring threats. I don't want to downplay anything. They have scoring threats, consistent scoring threats. They're going to either find their shot from the outside, create the offense, create it for others, or find a way to get to the foul line consistently. They don't have that. That's why even if I believe all the reports and I know that there's not a lot going on out there, I'm going to keep one eye on the deadline as it comes up this week, just in case. Do they feel the itch? Does something pop up that they say, we need this for this team now because we think we can make a run? And it not even talking about superstar, but some sort of supplement to this team to make it better for this run this season. The number one cure, of course, is still going to be having your all-star center back out there. Having Fred back out there. And running this thing as it's supposed to be run. I do think it would be a mistake to not find some sort of, I think about, what it looks like. Some kind of gunner to an extent off the bench. And I haven't done a lot of homework for myself on trade deadline stuff. Because this show we're reacting to post-game stuff. I leave that to Jackson going out there and handling the trade rumors and whatnot on the Locked On Rockets daily podcast. Man, I really feel like I watch this team, and if there's some sort of gunner out there that you could get off the bench that could just come in and get some shots up and be a guy that can go a little nuts at times, but also not break up what you have. That's important too. Not break up what you have defensively and the way that you play. That fits within what you want to do. It's hard to find in the middle of a season. It's hard to tick all the boxes that you want in a player, that I want in a player for this team. But I do think it would behoove them to do something to it, to add to it before the trade deadline passes later this week. They have to bounce back from this. This is 2 losses in a row. What do they have to do to look better against the Knicks in a couple of nights? We'll discuss that here on the Locked On Rockets Postcast. Super Bowl 59 is here. 1 game, 2 teams, endless possibilities. And there's no better way to make every play more exciting than with FanDuel Sportsbook. Whether it's predicting the first touchdown, calling the MVP, or even betting on the coin toss, FanDuel makes it easy to get in on the action. With live betting all game long, you can adjust your bets as the game unfolds and feel the thrill from kickoff to the final whistle. The live betting feature lets you stay involved no matter what happens on the field, and the app is super easy to navigate. Plus, knowing that you can place a $5 bet and potentially win $200 in bonus bets for the Super Bowl, that's icing on the cake. Download the app or head to FanDuel.com to get started. Bet just $5, and if you win, you'll score $200 in bonus bets. That's FanDuel.com. Bet with FanDuel, official sportsbook partner of Super Bowl 59. Locked On Rockets Postcast continues here on the Locked On Sports Houston page. I'm your host, Michael Connor. Thanks for stopping by tonight. Appreciate you guys. On a bad night for the Rockets, where they've fallen out of 32-16 on the season. 110-98 is the final tonight. As I have said once, twice, and I'm going to say it for a third time for myself tonight. I went back and I've gone through the schedule. I know that there's some bad losses. You know, the one that hurts the most still is the Minnesota game that they coughed away a 16-point lead with like 4 minutes to go. But I'm talking about overall play for an entire game. This was the hardest game to watch this year. I really do think this is their worst game this season. The competition is the loss to Memphis the other night. That wasn't fun. Lost to Sacramento recently. Detroit. Lost one to Boston. They didn't play well in that one. That was pretty bad. Miami, Minnesota, those two hurt. Oklahoma City, they lost to. They lost to Golden State. That was a bad one, too. I will admit that. Sacramento, Portland, Milwaukee. And they have some tough losses. Okay. But I'm not going to talk myself out of it. I think just from the overall standpoint of what they look like tonight, worst loss of the season. Now, they're going to New York. They got 2 games in a row in New York. Knicks on Monday. Nets again on Tuesday. Again, 6:30 tips for both of those. Interesting week for the Rockets, by the way. 4 games on the road. 2 of them in New York. Then they're going to Minnesota again. And then they come back to the state of Texas. And they're going to be in the state of Texas for basically the rest of the month of, well, a good chunk of the rest of the month of February. They'll play in Dallas on Saturday. Back-to-backs on Saturday, Sunday this upcoming week. Both day games, 2 o'clock and 1 o'clock. You know what's going to happen in those games? They're going to be weird. They're not going to be great games. Day games in the NBA, just the quality of play is never there. But if they're going to beat the Knicks in a couple of nights, now one, they got to have Alpy. I mean, they're going to need Alpy back there. We know that. Hopefully they have Fred. But they're going to have to watch out for zone defense. I'm telling you. Zone defense is going to be a problem. If the Knicks come out there and run that zone defense and they don't have a different mindset about it and they let it beat them the way that it's beating them right now, I think mentally more than anything else, then they don't have a chance with it. They will continue to lose basketball games if that happens. I don't think that's going to happen, but I'm just, if it were to happen. And then against Brooklyn again in a couple of nights, you're going to have to play the exact opposite. I mean, the same thing. Play the exact opposite of what you've done here tonight against this Brooklyn team. Of course, after the game ends, don't forget, we will be live here on this channel with the Locked On Rockets Postcast. I hope that you guys have a great rest of your Saturday night. Don't forget, I'm warning you right now, for those of you watching live, The screen is about to say the Locked On Texans Postcast. I don't know what happened tonight. It's the Locked On Rockets Postcast. We will see you guys again Monday night after Rockets and Knicks.